I never imagined that my footsteps through the damp, dark streets of London would one day become the thread that ties me to the edge of madness. I've lived here for years, wandering between old pubs, the underground tunnels, and the fog that seems to cover everything like a veil that hides secrets. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the night when the shadows took shape and began to chase me. It all began on a Friday evening. I had stayed late at work, trying to finish some reports while most of the city was already sinking into its usual rhythm of neon lights and laughter spilling out of bars. The clock was almost midnight. When I finally left the office, I remember the weight of the silence that pressed on my shoulders as I walked toward the station. London at that hour feels like a different world. The laughter disappears, the streets empty, and the air grows heavy with mist that clings to the skin. I took the underground as I had done countless times before, but that night every sound echoed differently. The rumble of the train, the hollow voices of the few passengers, the doors opening and closing, all of it seemed to stretch unnaturally, like an old vinyl record spinning too slowly. When I finally climbed the stairs and emerged onto the surface, the streets were empty. Only the dim glow of the street lamps and the cold dampness of the air accompanied me. That was when I heard it for the first time. A howl. Not just any howl, but one that pierced through the fog like a blade, vibrating in my chest as if it had been directed at me alone. My skin froze. I looked around, but the streets were deserted. The echo rolled through the alleys, bouncing between the brick walls and iron gates, until it disappeared into silence again. I told myself it must have been a dog, maybe someone's pet lost in the night. But deep down, in some hidden part of me that I didn't want to acknowledge, I already knew the truth. Because that howl carried something human, something cursed. I walked faster, my shoes echoing against the wet pavement, the sound amplified by the silence around me. The fog thickened with every step, curling around the street lamps until their light looked like faint dying candles. My heart told me to keep moving to reach the safety of my flat, but my ears betrayed me. Behind me, echoing faintly yet unmistakably, came the sound of footsteps. At first I thought it might be another late-night wanderer, someone stumbling home from the pubs, but these footsteps were wrong. They didn't match mine. They were heavier, dragging slightly, like claws scraping the ground. I stopped. The steps stopped. That silence was worse than the sound itself. "Hello," I called into the night, my voice trembling more than I wanted it to. No answer, just the fog, thick and oppressive, swallowing my words. And then, a growl, low, guttural, so close that I swore I felt its vibration in my bones. My body froze, but my instincts screamed louder than reason. I broke into a run, my breath tearing out of me as I pushed through the fog. London's streets twisted like a labyrinth, the familiar transformed into a nightmare. Every corner I turned, every alley I crossed, I felt it gaining on me. The growls grew louder, punctuated by something worse, the thudding of powerful limbs, faster, relentless. I risked a glance over my shoulder. At first, I saw nothing, just mist and shadows. But then, two eyes cut through the fog, yellow, burning, locked on me. That was when I knew this was no ordinary beast. I dashed into an alleyway, the brick walls closing in on me, the smell of damp stone and garbage pressing down. My mind raced for an explanation. Maybe I had gone mad, maybe exhaustion had conjured this nightmare. But then the howl came again, closer, impossibly close. My legs nearly gave out. I stumbled upon an iron gate at the end of the alley, rusted and chained. My hands shook as I pulled at it, the metal rattling like bones. Behind me the growl deepened. I didn't need to look. I felt it, the presence filling the alley, its breath hot and rancid against my back. And then, the sound that would haunt me forever, claws dragging against the bricks, slow, deliberate, savoring the hunt. Desperation lent me strength. I scrambled up the gate, my hands tearing on the rusted edges, my coat snagging and ripping. I threw myself over just as a massive shadow lunged forward, slamming into the gate with a force that rattled the ground. I landed hard on the other side, my knees screaming with pain, but I didn't stop. I ran, tears burning in my eyes, until the streets opened again. And there, illuminated by the pale glow of a church's stained glass window, I saw it fully for the first time. A monster, tall, twisted, covered in bristling fur that gleamed wet under the fog's sheen. Its mouth hung open, fangs glistening, a grotesque parody of a snarl and a grin. But what struck me most wasn't its size or its claws, it was its eyes. They were human, or they had once been. And in them, I saw torment, rage, hunger, and a curse older than the city itself. The bells of the church rang then, cutting through the night, and for a moment the creature recoiled just enough for me to stagger backward, clutching at the stone walls for balance. I didn't understand why, whether it was the sound, the sacred ground, or something deeper, but I didn't wait to find out. I ran again, knowing now that I was not simply being chased by an animal. I was being hunted by a man damned to darkness. A werewolf. I don't remember how long I ran. Time lost all meaning in the fog. My lungs burned, my legs ached, and my throat felt raw from gasping for breath. But I couldn't stop. Every corner I turned, every shadow I passed, I felt it closing in again. The monster never needed to rush. It knew I was already breaking. That fear was consuming me more quickly than exhaustion ever could. Finally, the narrow streets opened to a wrought iron gate, tall and black, its paint peeling with age. Behind it I saw rows of crooked headstones, some leaning like drunks, others cracked in half. A cemetery. My first instinct was to turn away, to plunge back into the streets I knew, no matter how dark or dangerous. But then I heard it, a snarl, low and guttural, echoing from somewhere just behind me. I didn't have the luxury of choice. I shoved the gate, which shrieked like a dying thing, and slipped inside. The air was colder there, heavy, damp, as if the fog itself had thickened among the graves. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the caw of a crow startled from its perch. I stumbled past tombstones, some etched with dates so worn I couldn't read them, others marked with angels whose faces had eroded into grotesque masks. Behind me, the gate slammed shut, not from the wind, from something entering. I froze, my heart hammering. Then came the sound, claws dragging against the stone path, deliberate and slow. It was toying with me. I pressed myself against a mausoleum, its stone cold against my back, and tried to quiet my breathing. But it was no use. The beast could hear me, smell me. I could feel its presence weaving between the rows, closer with every heartbeat. The fog shifted, and I caught sight of it again. Its shape loomed taller than the monuments, fur bristling, its shoulders rising and falling with each monstrous breath. Those yellow eyes cut through the darkness, sweeping over the graves until they locked on me. I bolted, I weaved through the tombstones, the earth uneven beneath my feet. My shoes slipped on wet grass, my hands scraped against cold stone. The howl that followed was unlike anything I'd ever heard, not just rage but triumph. The hunt had led me exactly where it wanted. I stumbled into the shadow of a great oak tree that grew at the heart of the cemetery, its branches clawing the sky like skeletal fingers. Beneath it lay a circle of ancient graves, their inscriptions faded beyond recognition. Something about them felt different, older, like they had been here before the city itself. And when I stepped into that circle, the creature stopped. I turned, trembling, and there it was, only a few paces away, its chest rising and falling, saliva dripping from its fangs. But it did not leap. It growled, pacing just beyond the ring of graves, its claws digging furrows in the dirt. It couldn't cross. I sank to my knees in the circle of graves, my chest heaving, my body trembling. The beast lingered beyond the barrier, growling, pacing, its yellow eyes never leaving me. But in that terrifying moment, I realized that running was no longer the answer. If I wanted to survive, I had to understand. I began examining the stones around me. Most were weathered beyond recognition, but one caught my attention. Larger, older, etched with a symbol I couldn't name. It was a wolf's head, surrounded by intricate markings that seemed almost alive in the dim light. Beneath it, a barely legible inscription read, "The blood of the cursed feeds the shadow until the debt is repaid." Chills ran through me. The words felt like a warning, and yet, somehow I felt they were speaking directly to me. My mind raced. Debt, curse, shadow, the stories my grandmother had whispered when I was a child. Tales she called London legends suddenly made sense. She had always warned me about the old curse, the one tied to the city's fog, the old cemeteries, and creatures that walked on nights when the moon hid. I had thought them fantasy, but now, standing here, I knew she had been right. I reached out and touched the wolf engraving. The stone was ice cold and a shock ran up my arm. I pulled back, then saw it beneath the engraving, a small hollow. I knelt and pried it open. Inside lay a relic, a silver medallion shaped like a full moon, its surface etched with the same strange symbols as the stone. The moment I touched it, a memory forced itself into my mind. Visions not my own. I saw a man, centuries ago, cursed by a dark sorcerer. He had been a hunter, arrogant and cruel, and for his sins, he was condemned to walk between man and beast for eternity. Every night of the full moon he hunted, never able to rest, never able to die. But there was a way to contain the curse. The bloodline of the innocent could awaken the seal of the cemetery, and the monster would be trapped until the next generation risked its wrath. My heart stopped. I was that bloodline. Somehow, this curse had been passed down, silently, through my family. The creature outside, the hunts, the terror. It was all connected to me, to my very existence. I clutched the medallion and whispered the words etched in my mind. The fog trembled, the ground shuddered. The creature's howl rose in rage, then paused. Its form began to shrink, the fur retracting, the monstrous features folding back into human shape. The man, the cursed hunter, knelt at the edge of the circle, his eyes now sorrowful rather than predatory. He looked at me, a mixture of gratitude and despair, before vanishing into the mist as the first light of dawn touched the graves. I sank to the ground, exhausted, alive. The curse had been contained, at least for now. The medallion burned lightly in my hand, a reminder that the shadow would always be waiting, patient, silent. And I knew, though the night had ended, the story of the curse was far from over. I rose and left the cemetery. London awoke around me, unaware of the horrors that had stalked its streets, the secrets buried beneath the fog. I walked home, my steps steady, my breath finally calm. But every time the wind whispered through the trees, I remembered those yellow eyes, and I knew one truth: some shadows never fade, and I would carry the story forever.